Welcome back. We're now going to be joined by advocate Stefanie Fick. She is with OUTA. She'll pick up from where Wayne Duvenage left off. Unfortunately, his line was very unstable, but she has very graciously come to the fore to address the issue around Markus Jooste, a no-show at his 20 million rand insider trading challenge case. A very good morning to you, Stefanie. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Always a pleasure. I love joining you. My pleasure.
Thank you so very much for being so very gracious. We love talking with you guys all the time because we know that you are here serving our best interest at heart. God protect and guide you all. Let's look at the story, Stefanie. And when we talk about the former Steinhoff CEO Markus Jooste, apparently he was a no-show yesterday in court in Pretoria, but he also faces a warrant of arrest in Germany for failing to appear for his fraud trial there. Subsequent to that, in August, the same court in Germany handed Steinhoff's former European finance chief, Dirk Schreiber, a 3.5-year jail sentence, making him the first person to be imprisoned over the accounting scandal that led to the near collapse of the retailer. So I'm talking about Markus here in South Africa. I'm talking about a pending trial in Germany, but we're also talking about his partner having been jailed in Germany. Serious situation, isn't it?
Yeah, as it should be. I think you are talking about 106, I think that's the correct number, billion rand that was lost because of their behavior. And I think if you just think about, corruption in South Africa and corruption not only in government, but also in the private sector, that it is high time that they take action against, these individuals that is giving, South Africa a bad name. A very interesting statistic is that South Africa in sub-Saharan Africa is, 58 of 100 companies are internationally competing companies. So it's high time that we get our house in order and instill, ethical behavior, because except for the fact that, there were criminal activities, just the unethical behavior, we cannot stand for it. And that, you will understand that, anti-corruption policies, etc., comes from the top, comes from, the directors. So, yes, a lot of legal woes for Markus Jooste, but I think he's deserving of everything that comes his way.
Okay, however, I was quite surprised at this, that his challenge against, he didn't attend the proceedings in Pretoria on Tuesday, but the amount of the fine was dropped by 90%, and it has been reduced to 20 million rand, and that is the administrative penalty for insider trading. So it's almost as if he's gotten off pretty lightly. I mean,
No,
initially it was much higher, and I'm trying to find the figure here. I think it was 162 million rands that he
yes.
was meant to be fined, and now it's dropped to 20 million rand. He's gotten off very lightly, but the fact that he was a no-show in court, is that significant at all?
It's very difficult to sort of speak on his behalf. No idea why he didn't pitch. So let's just go back. So firstly, this started with the Financial Sector Conduct Authority that gave him the fine. He then probably made representations, and they said, okay, we will lower the fine to 20 million. And all of this then went to the tribunal that is supposed to, it's like I'm going to assume it's like an appeal process, and this tribunal was supposed to hear why this should be lowered even further. And I think the suggestion by Markus Jooste's legal team was that he doesn't have an income since 2017. He hasn't had an income, etc. Yeah. So, on the one hand, trying to be objective about it, and is that Probably the reason why they lowered it is that they had to take into account that, he doesn't have a salary, et cetera, et cetera. But very interesting what the judge said yesterday is, Jooste made a choice not to come to the tribunal. Which I'm also going to assume is not necessary. I mean, there wasn't any talk of a warrant of arrest or something, but he did this, to his own detriment, because what the judge has said is, you are telling us that he doesn't have an income, but he's not here giving us testimony about his financial position. The judge, Markus Jooste's legal team, also argued that the Financial Sector Conduct Authority worked the amount that he was fined. They looked at the last amount of what what do you call them, what was traded in the company, and not at the average amount of the trade for the day, and they had a problem with that. So in other words, they had a problem with how the fine was calculated.
Stefanie, we talk about wholesale corruption, and I mean, I don't think there's a more corrupt country in the world than South Africa currently. We know corruption is practiced all around the world in whatever form, but it is a practice. There's collusion, etc. I've been talking over time with different political parties, people that support different political parties in South Africa, and with the upcoming elections, we do know there's going to be a lot of politicking, etc. And when I raise the issue of white monopoly, when I raise the issue of corruption, very especially the Eskom debacle as well, which has brought the country to its knees, certain individuals bring up the issue around white monopoly capitalists and say that that is where the rot started. It was never addressed, and that is why we see the country where it is now. And of course, you've heard it as well. Everything is blamed on apartheid. I then say it's 30 years on. Guys, let's get our act together. If we haven't got it together by now, it ain't going to come right at all. How do you respond, very especially as a white person?
You know what? We need to take account. We need to be held accountable for what happened in the past. It's not something we can just brush under a stone and say, listen, the past is the past. Let's move forward. And we need to understand what went wrong. And there was a lot of wrongs that happened in the past that carried over. And that's why, for example, urbanization and all of that is still a problem. But what we cannot deny is that in terms of our economic growth, you still sit with just a small number of elites that, get the contracts. You're talking about cadre deployment and all of that. So and that just adds to the wrongs of the past. So instead of trying to create a different economic environment so that there is growth, business, that we can grow economically. What we've seen with corruption is that the money also just go to certain individuals. And that you can see in the unemployment rate, the fact that we cannot create jobs. What we did is we created jobs in government instead of providing a platform where business can grow. So although we obviously have to understand what went wrong in the past, is that I think what has happened in the past 30 years is that we concentrated less on how to correct the past and more about, certain individuals now had the opportunity to get rich, and to the detriment. And this is there's no discrimination in color in terms of, who are those individuals. It's companies, private individuals. Here we see Markus Jooste. So it's all colors of the rainbow that was guilty. We saw state capture. Why? Because we also have a government from the top that said corruption is okay. And that's why we sit with the problem currently. It is corruption is rife. And if business, who's got a responsibility, government start doing something about corruption, we will not resolve the poverty in South Africa. Because and I'm saying this, it's not as easy, but part of it is, income is one thing, but I think the biggest problem is how do we spend it? And then you think about, how much parliament is costing us, how much government salaries is costing us, just bleeding the money in terms of corruption, how much money is lost and not paid for to get a better health system. And I'm not talking NHI because we do not have the funds to fund NHI. It is an excellent idea because that's what we want. But if we aren't able to deal with the health currently, making sure that our clinics and hospitals service the public that so desperately need it, how are we able to deal with NHI? But that's just, to improve our health, to improve our education system. So a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is just purely the fact that we cannot put a stop in this. I see it as a bucket with holes in it. And as you pour the water, which is, our finances, the holes is corruption. And we just lose all the funds that can be used for communities. We lose through corruption.
Stefanie, you and I need to have an in-depth conversation about all of this rot that's playing out in the country. Let's get back to Markus Jooste. One or two more questions regarding his future. What happens now? He's paying. He obviously will pay this 20 million rand fine. Does he live happily ever after and we forget about him? Are there more charges that he needs to face? And the pending trial in Germany, obviously, once he goes out of the country, I'm not sure about extradition orders, but once he's out of the country, there's a chance he might get picked up in the UK, any other part of Europe, but probably he's smart enough not to even venture out of the country. What does his future look like? What next for Markus Jooste?
I think everybody hopes we see him in orange overalls, not just in South Africa, but also in Germany. As far as I understand it, that the NPA is, hard at work in investigating and preparing for a prosecution. And he should. And if you are talking about 20 million and, the enormous amount of money that was lost, through fraud and theft, this man should be behind bars for the rest of his life. You are talking minimum sentences, probably more than 15 years. And white-collar crimes is also a pandemic in South Africa. And that courts take this seriously. So if he is in front of a court, that I hope that the state can prove their case, and he found guilty, literally, that he goes to prison for a very long time. And then, there's a part of me that wants to say, I think what he's facing in South Africa is way worse than the 3 years that he might face in Germany, and that our prisons are not a vacation. So,
Absolutely not.
Yeah, so he really deserves to be held accountable for the mess that he has created.
Steph, that's where we're going to leave it. I look forward to more conversations with you in the future. And as I always say, you guys at OUTA keep up the amazing work. I do hope and pray that we see more such organizations shooting up all over the country. That's the only way we can pull our country back from the brink of disaster. You go well. God bless.
Thank you. And the same to you. You know what? I need to return the compliment is that thank you for institutions like Salam Media, who, is vocal about certain things and also speak on behalf of the people, because that's what we need to do. Be vocal about our rights. And 2024 is coming.
Please, God, yes, watch over us. Go well and have a great week ahead. It is exactly 9:59. It should be wrap-up time for me today, but because we've been a bit delayed with all of our interviews, let's just check with the producer if we are in fact going to be doing this final interview, and it is a story of hope from Cape Town's blind community, and I've been given the thumbs up. Yes, the interview is going ahead, so please do stand by. We'll join you in a minute or two.